Brought to you by Zwift. Explore, train, and compete on the indoor cycling app where fun is fast.
Kind of the last observation that I had, and of course you were there, Gregor, so you're going to have a different perspective. And the COVID protocol of the pro peloton has evolved this year, in particular from the cyclocross season into the road season. I don't want to necessarily draw conclusions that a lot of the sickness was COVID, because they were saying that there was a flu going around. But, there were a lot of numbers that were lost in this year's Pyrenees. And was it the sickness? I mean, we saw a lot of sickness going on this year, and it really did wipe out the peloton.
Yeah, and one American writer, which I wish I had spoken with. Well, there were a couple. I did speak with Canadian James Piccoli just at the bus one day, saying hello. Never got him on record for an interview, which is a shame. And same for DSM writer Kevin Vermarke. Both of those writers pulling out. We saw Guillaume Bovan pull out, but he quit because I think he was having some back problems, and he's part of the Israel Premier Tech team, which everybody abandoned, but Hugo Hull, which made for an interesting story. And then another team also with only one rider, Fabio Felline in the Team Astana team. So, that team was wiped out. All the teams were wiped out. Yeah, there was something going around. It didn't seem to be COVID. People were being tested for that. So it seemed to be some strong flu going around or something. Maybe now with mask wearing not as predominant as before, we get kind of these airborne influenzas traveling around a lot quicker than we have or had over the last couple of years. And you can also hear it in my voice too. I seem to pick up some gunk when I was traveling around France, eating baguettes and drinking red wine. So I have a memento from my race there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays as we go into the classics too. The men who will benefit are the men who perhaps came out of that not only with good racing in their legs, but without something in their lungs or in their head. So as we get on to the next races, like I said, Catalunya and then Ghent-Wevelgem, the races coming up, we'll have to see how everybody's recovering and heading in. But also in Italy as well, the riders were having a heck of a time. We saw Peter Sagan have to pull out, and so it's definitely taken its toll. It's been a colder mid-March than I can remember, especially at these races like Paris-Nice. Typically, it's a slightly warmer event, so we're all feeling it, Jessica.
Yeah, well, so you bring up an interesting point. Okay, it's probably not COVID. It's the flu. It's going around. Riders can get over that. Of course, the flu takes a little bit of a better part of a week, 2 weeks, whatever. The little bit of bed rest will get better. Losing over, oh gosh, almost 100 riders. There were 59 riders who finished out of 154 starters, which they're saying, out of all the editions of Paris-Nice, 80 editions now. This is the fewest riders we've had finish since 1985. Uh, what I really want to more focus on, though, is, okay, we're going to get better from our illnesses. However, our crashes and, the unfortunate incidents that kept riders out of the race so early in the season. I mean, we lost UAE's Matteo Trentin from a concussion, left early. Didn't really hear any updates from Cobrelli or Schachman as to why they left early. Maybe you have some insight on that. But the crashes, the crashes, the crashes, the crashes. And every year, these tend to be the most played clips on FloBikes, because everybody wants to see who went down and where they went down. And I mean, of course, Paris-Nice, same thing. Stage two, we saw quite a few crashes there, both early in the race due to crosswinds, because that entire stage was just affected by the wind blowing riders all over. And then also later in the race, where we mentioned earlier Matteo Jorgensen's crash with about 6K to go, which I'm not quite sure if this was crosswind related. I know, or I'm sorry, crosswind related. He had mentioned this in his vlog, but unfortunate. It took him out of his potential stage win, or potential, opportunity to go for a stage win. And he mentioned on camera that he was looking to focus to changes priorities to go ahead and focus on getting those stage wins, which of course he did go for later in stage 5. And then again, stage 3, we see another crash. Early season, I've always heard, and maybe you can confirm this, Gregor, that Paris-Nice is just a very nervous race. It's early in the season. People are shaking out those the early team tactics. They're working on their stage race legs. But yeah, I think you had interviewed quite a few riders that were saying it's a nervous race, and those crosswinds really get people on edge, and lots of touching of wheels and down they go.
Unfortunately, it's going to fortunately or unfortunately, it depends on what you're watching for. The race should stay kind of similar over the next couple of years, because what we have to consider is that Nice, the city and the area there, they have a contract with ASO, the race organizer, for at least 2 stages every year. And then the area around Paris where the race begins, they have the same for 2 stages up there. So what we get are a lot of these long kind of transitional stages, flat and straight, and in that area where there is always wind. And so that's a factor. We're always getting the crosswind stages, which they're beautiful, but with the nature of riding in echelons and crosswinds, of course these men are skilled, but it just takes a little bit of lapse in concentration, and not only do you fall down, but the others around you fall down as well. And I think that might have been the case with Matteo Jorgensen and Stephen Kreuzwick, the bike exchange rider, getting over into those two. Another thing is that early on in this race, that is the only opportunity for when there are sprint stages. So any of the sprint teams that have come to this race, they're going to be pushing very hard for those sprint wins early on and doing everything possible to get them. So that increases the stress levels. And I think in any stage race, the stress level and the opportunity or the chances of a crash are higher in the first few stages, as we see every year in the Tour de France as well, because the nerves are still high and people are yet to settle in, and perhaps because there's still the 100% of the riders in the peloton too. So we have a bigger group out there on the road. Just imagine 15 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't that long ago when we had 8, 9 rider teams here at the race. In the Grand Tours, we had 9, 10 rider teams. The roads are packed, and they're having to, make these adjustments as more and more road furniture gets added in Europe, more and more roundabouts. And then also there's more and more attention on safety with the riders as well, because back in the day, they were wearing leather hairnets or nothing at all. And not too much was getting pointed out. We didn't have all the phones catching all the crashes as we do now.